Okay. Hey, everyone. We're going to wait for a few minutes just to give people a chance to connect. But yeah, we are now streaming live on YouTube for today's Datasette public office hours. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people presenting today, including myself and Alex. And yeah, we're going to be doing demos of Datasette and Datasette adjacent projects that people have been building, which this is the first time we've done this sort of lightning demo format. I'm really excited about this. I'm hoping this works out really well, so we can do this more in the future. So let's just making sure that I'm going to send out an announcement with the YouTube link in it, and then we can get started. And I'll just quickly check that that is broadcasting correctly. Yeah, I think we're good to go. Fantastic. So yeah, first up today we have Matias, who I will add to the stage. Matias, are you screen sharing?
I am trying.
Gotcha. I saw your screen flash past a moment ago, so I think this should work. There we go. Added your screen to the stage. That's all working. Fantastic. Yeah, take it away, Matias.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so totally newbie in this space. Started hacking with LLMs back in during Christmas time. But I really enjoyed it, created my first plugin, which I'm going to briefly demo. And the whole idea is that I want to understand what my prompts are doing, and I want to save them, right? So whenever I'm, creating a prompt, like, I don't know, reviewing a Python test code, right? There might be positive or bad things about it. And, as I'm learning about this, whether this is good or bad, and for me, this is already too lengthy. So I might have a bad prompt. What I basically want to do is send feedback back to my system, basically, right? And I'm just saying, well, this is feedback -1, so this is too lengthy, right? Now, to be quite honest, this is already it. It's really very simple, and I'll show you in a second of what it really does. But it's a small SQLite database that sits in context to responses. But if I start querying them, and yeah, I'm just going to paste the here. So if I go into my SQLite database here. And just going to paste these in so I can, so it's a little faster, right? I can start looking. That's screwed. I hope the screen still works. But basically, it's a simple table where I collect the feedback plus -1, and I have a little bit comment around this. And afterwards, I can start doing fun things with it. And this is all by, listening to Simon and the crazy things that he does. Is like, I can take this and pipe it back to an LLM and saying, what are my, what am I doing with the prompts, those that I've annotated. If I want to share one other part, let me just make sure, stop sharing and resharing. Yeah. So again, the basic idea is that I want to remember and improve my prompts. I've created a simple database, and this is currently just for LLM. But I've realized that if you look at other tools like GitHub Copilot, etc., you have always these helpful thumbs up, thumbs down, and that's also where my initial UI came from. But yeah, Copilot, I don't know. I haven't checked too much about it, but I'm a fan of Continue Dev, and they actually store their logs also in a SQLite database, right? So yeah, I kind of basically I'm learning about this, and I want to understand on how people are using this. And yeah, I'm saving my prompts and want to do this with all the tools that I'm using. First with LLM and then with ContinuDev.
I love that. I love that trick you have there where you summarize the feedback by piping it back through LLM. That's delightfully recursive there.
It's yeah. I mean, again, like, watching your videos of just, that's why I like the CLI. And that's why I've also got into this project. Like, to be quite honest, I'm not a Python developer. And when I was creating, so this little project is called LLM logs feedback, right? And it's just a PyPy package, and you can install it. The very fact that I was able to create that plugin and submit it was just amazing for myself, right? I was able to do this within a day or so, and I'm just amazed, and I want to continue working on it. But I want to remember and improve my prompts, right? So that's my project. And yeah, I'm looking forward for any type of feedback, things that people want to do with it. Just very briefly, things that are on my list currently. I want to dislike old responses. Think about the interface a little bit. Again, integration with ContinuDev. Then doing something with the data, right? As you said, right, I already piped it, but there might be something others. And something that I realized when I was coding and remembering things, I want to integrate it with Git, right? So that both my Git history and my prompts and feedback on these prompts are linked.
I love that. The field of integrating like prompts with Git feels so obviously right to me. Like, I want version control of all of my prompts because they're effectively source code that I'm manipulating over time. It strikes me looking at this that the one aspect of LLM that really isn't there at all at the moment is the web UI, right? It very clearly there should be a way to fire up a browser-based UI where you can do the sort of chat things, but also have plugins like yours that can add additional features in there. And that, I've got a couple of like half-baked sort of prototypes of how that could work, but I feel like the scope of the tool gets so much more interesting when you can type LLM space web, enter, launch a localhost web server, and then start like chatting to the models and viewing things in your SQLite database and so forth. But then if you can add on features like this, that would be really interesting. I think that would sort of take this whole idea a whole extra level.
Totally. That said, I do want to do it on the CLI. I want to understand if it's feasible or not. I already see that something it's working. Sometimes it feels a little bit clunky, but yes, web UI similarly. And just one word around ContinuDev, right? Open source tool, and they seem to have the right mindset. And I come from the CNCF Kubernetes world, and I really want to work on standards. Like, if like I love that you put everything in a database and it has a schema center. What I would love is that we, with other tools, we agree on a common format. And that everything is stored in a place. Yeah.
So one of the things I really enjoy about having SQLite in the middle of things is that it makes it easy to support multiple standards. Like, if somebody has a standard for sharing prompts, you can write a plugin that selects the right things from your SQLite database and outputs in that format. But then if there are rival formats, you can support all of them. Like, Datasette itself has plugins for things like export this data as iCal format or TSV, or I think there's a Parquet plugin now as well. And I love that. I love that idea that the standards can become ways for you to share data with other people, but you can kind of just build the internal storage mechanism, whatever's most convenient at the time.
Exactly, and maybe even like pipe it to something else in a joint database or something. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, and where should people go to learn more about this project?
LLM. Okay, resharing. LLM logs feedback.
Fantastic.
And it's the PyPy package, and you can just install it, play around with it, look at PyPy or here.
Awesome. The best thing about having a plugin system is that your software can grow new features overnight. You wake up one morning and it can do new things. And this is awesome. Thank you very much for sharing this. And yeah, if people want to check this out, there's the GitHub URL, and I'll have this in some show notes to accompany this on on YouTube later on as well. But yeah, thank you very much, Matias.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Next up, we are inviting to the stage Tommy Hughes, who's been building a wide array of interesting LLM-related plugins and features for a while now. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some demonstrations of how these work. Tommy, would you like me to add your screen and your face, or just your screen? Oh, Tommy, sorry. You're unmuted now. Can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. There's no camera, so screen only, I guess. Can you see my screen? 4 terminals should be on screen at the moment.
Yes, we can see that, yeah.
All right, good. Okay, so there's so many LLM projects that are built the past few months, it's hard to know where to start. But you were just talking about a web interface, right?
Yes,
like
yeah.
a web interface.
Uh-huh.
So I just recently generated, more than built, I generated this plugin using the LLM plugin generator. And if it works, yeah, there we go. So you can now serve any model that's installed in LLM, you can serve it on an OpenAI compatible server.
Nice.
Just by doing LLM install, LLM model gateway, and then LLM serve will serve all models that you have installed. And you can also serve individual models by specifying the model. And I think, let me see if I have curl so I can test this. I'm sure I tested it recently.
LLM Open Web UI, I think it's called Open Web UI, which I think might be able to run, like it gives you a graphical like user interface in your browser against a nearby OpenAI compatible endpoint. So it's possible that that would run directly against your LLM Serve plugin and provide an interface that way. What did you say the name of this plugin was?
It's LLM Model Gateway.
Gotcha. Okay, I will have a quick poke and see if that works. But
yeah,
cool.
Usually I just do curl, but I don't have the. I can't remember the command off the top of my head.
I always get Claude to write my curl commands for me.
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, sweet.
This is. So I'll just try asking Claude.
Oh, LLM. Oh, there we go. LLM install LLM model gateway. Oh, there we go. Yep, Claude 3.5 Sonnet.
Is yours working?
I've got it.
Or are you looking?
I'm trying to figure out what the URL is. Is it the /v1/completion endpoint?
Yeah, I just tested it on my screen now, so it's working.
Awesome.
I just literally used Shelp to ask Claude, and Shelp is just a tiny shell script. But yeah, you can do. So I just did curl 127.0.0.1 8000 with the correct command, test prompt to GPT 3.5 Turbo, and that worked beautifully. And
this wasn't even the thing you were planning on demonstrating, right?
No, that's right. It wasn't. It was only because it came up in your last chat that I thought I'd mention it. If you want to, you can use any any web interface that supports OpenAI compatible endpoint, you can now serve your LLM models, and then you get the database and everything else that comes with it. So you get the history. That should be in the history if I go back to it. Let's have a look. Yeah, there it is. Say hello, GPT 3.5 Turbo. So yeah, so there you go. That's working. And the main thing I wanted to show you, if you want to move on or you want to talk some more.
Yeah, let's move on. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So LLM Consortium was an idea, something I've been noodling with for a while, or something that I wanted for a while. And I saw that Andre Karpathy was complaining about the same thing. Like, there's so many frontier models at the moment that are competing that it doesn't make sense to stick with one. You're always having to use multiple models now to get the best intelligence, to get your tasks done. And it's not like the old GPT-4 days when you just used GPT-4 and that was it, and it was easy. Now the frontier is jagged, as they say. So every model has weird skills and adjacent skills that it's bad at. And it's weird because it's like asking a barista to make you a cup of tea, and it can't do it. It's like it can make a cup of coffee, but it can't make a cup of tea. It's like, you should be able to do that. But the jagged frontier means that they have these weird skill gaps. And so Karpathy was talking about using multiple models and then having to look at the outputs and picking bits and bobs from each output and then responding with copy and pasting to try and get a synthesis with a human in the loop. And it's a lot of work. So I thought, I've been thinking about the same thing, and I just I gave Karpathy's tweet along with some notes of my own to the LLM plugin generator and asked it to generate the.
And that's another one of your projects, right? That's your plugin that generates plugins.
That's right. It's a plugin that generates plugins. So I gave I think I've just recently switched my account, so most of my. Is this it? It should be in here, actually. Yeah. Yeah, this is the original prompt, which I gave it. So LLM generate plugin, and then I use some XML. You don't need to, but I like to use them. Karpathy Consortium engine. Consortium plugin should loop until consensus is reached. I should be able to specify the model roles and allow for defaults. It should fulfill Karpathy's wish beautifully and delights the users, draw inspiration and ideas from the research files. And then I've included basically a history from the logs database, which I call Clark. So this is just another tiny little shell script, which I pump my ideas into, and that goes to a.
And that's how it knows who Karpathy, what the Karpathy idea is, because that's included in those logs, right?
Yes, right, because I've copied it into the Clark, which is literally just a Gemini chat session that I continue over and over just by using the Clark.
Brilliant. I'd never clocked that idea that you just have, you treat one of these conversations as a notebook, right? You just keep on dumping in little things, and then you can pump the logs as part of a prompt later on. That's fascinating. What a clever trick.
And that's the whole Clark function. And I've actually prompted it to act like a Victorian, so just to make it entertaining. When you give it ideas, it talks back to you as if it were like a steampunk Victorian dude. But yeah, every idea basically I pump into that, and I gave that the tweet from Karpathy. In fact, I gave it the whole Clark history because it contained other notes and bits and bobs that might have been useful. And it literally generated the plugin in one go, in one step. It was done. And it worked. But I knew that there was some kind of issue with it because so that the consortium will prompt multiple models, however many you choose, and then it sends the results of those to a arbiter model.
Ah, that's your dash arbiter argument. I get it. Okay, so here you're saying run the prompt against Claude Sonnet and DeepSeek and Gemini and Minimax 01, and then arbiter Minimax 01. Okay, and then so is it going to run the prompt a single time against Claude, a single time against DeepSeek, Gemini 2, and then combine the results using the arbiter? What do the max iterations do?
If it doesn't hit the confidence threshold, but it does hit the max iterations, then it will stop.
Gotcha.
So if you want to limit it to 2 iterations, you could set the confidence threshold to 1, but set the max iterations to 1.
Does it log all of the details to the normal SQLite database, or does it do something else?
No, it logs it to the normal SQLite database.
Nice. That's really nice, yeah. Once again, I found myself desperately wanting an interactive web interface for this, just to smooth down the user experience a tiny bit.
Yeah. So the first generation, the first version had a small bug where multiple, well, say a small bug, it was quite a big one actually. When it was iterating, when it went to step 2, step 3, it wasn't including the original steps, previous steps. And when I first ran it, it appeared to be working perfectly, but that's because even with one iteration, it produces great results. So I would just look at the synthesis, the output, and it looked good. But then when I looked at the history, I realized it was only giving me the final iteration, which effectively meant that it forgot about the first 2, and it was only one. It was always only one iteration. And so I gave the source code to the arbiter and asked it to, I didn't specify anything. I just said, look for problems, suggestions, recommendations, whatever. And only 1 out of 3 models picked up on an issue. The other 2 did not. And the way I expected it to work was I thought if only 1 model mentions it out of 3, then the arbiter will probably ignore that. But because this was quite a serious bug, the arbiter was clever enough to think, even though it's only 1 out of 3 models mentioning this, it's obviously important. So I'm going to bring that to the front of my response.
Oh, that's interesting. I was thinking maybe you'd want an extra option for like an additional instruction to give the arbiter. So you could say, oh, by the way, arbiter, follow your normal rules, but also, but it sounds like that. I love that I guess because it was, I love the idea that some of the models are just smart enough to notice when they should raise something, even though it's not a majority opinion. That's super interesting.
Yeah. And you can absolutely prompt it for how it should behave. For example, it will sometimes the synthesis will say something like models 1 and 2 are junk, but model 3 is good. So just go and look at model 3's response. And if you, by default, it shows you all of the responses and the synthesis. So that's fine. You can just scroll down. And if there's a good response, and that's fine. But you can specify, if you want in your prompt, you can just say, make sure that you always output an answer, a full answer in the synthesis, and it will always do that. So you have some control over it.
So we've got a couple more minutes. Do you have any other things that you wanted to demo as well, or do you mainly want to talk about LLM Consortium?
Well, that's running. It's is it running? Yeah, it should be running. It's going a bit slow, but the there we go.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. So I just asked it for, what did I ask? Write a document about using CFR. CFR is counterfactual regret minimization,
Okay.
which is an algorithm from poker, and I'm trying to adapt it for the consortium to make the to make training the models more intelligent. Because with this, in theory, you can automate model evaluations, because the arbiter will say which models look good
Right.
and which look bad. So it's only a small step to then automate evaluations from this. And one idea I had was using something like counterfactual regret, because I realized you can treat this like a game where each model is a contestant.
Okay.
And it's
Can we see
to
the output at the very bottom? Just so this is the thought process. It analyzes the response from each model, and then at the very bottom, does it output its sort of final like combined response?
Yes. I'm testing Minimax, that new model.
Yes.
So this is
the one with the
super
super long context, right?
Right. Yeah. And this is literally the first time I've tried it. So
I mean,
I'm not sure if it's doing as well as normal.
Okay, here we go. The synthesis out. Look at this. I mean, it's written a whole report, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh wow! If you could dump this in like a gist as Markdown and share that afterwards, I'm looking forward to reading through this, seeing how it did.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so what I'm thinking is treating it like a game, and it's like a poker game in that an LLM can generate a correct chain of thought, but still produce a bad final answer. You know, like in evals when they have multiple choice, you sometimes see that they get the idea right, but then the final answer is wrong, just because the models are ultimately non-deterministic and random. And there's always an element of randomness in that final selection. Even with temperature 0, there's still some degree of randomness in the final token selection. So you can treat it kind of like a game of poker where the contestants are competing to get the right answer. And you try and you look at the final result and see which one won. And then look at the decisions it made, and you reward it for making correct decisions with ignoring the final output, but making sure that it made the right decisions. So that's something that I'm exploring. That's why I'm looking at counterfactual regret minimization to see if that, or some form of regret optimization.
I love the way your process here is. It's very much dog fooding. You're using your own tools to build new tools that expand on your existing tools. It's really fun to see.
Oh yeah. I mean, and there's so many. This is just scratching the surface, but there's let me see, Stream Deck. So the front of my desk is a Stream Deck.
You've got a
with all the buttons on it.
Yep.
And I don't do any streaming, but I have all the buttons assigned to various macros and things. And this is my Visual Studio Code page with all of my active projects. And 90% of these are LLM related.
Wow.
And at least half of them are literally LLM CLI projects. Let's see. There's the LLM Consortium. Classify. LLM Classify, that's a way of classifying
true or false. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And you can install that with just LLM install LLM Classify. Let's see if this works. So I built a Gina plugin as well. Gina have tons of AI tools, right?
Yeah, they've got the re-rankers and stuff. Oh, you've got re-ranking opening working as a plugin now.
Yes.
Exciting.
Did that work?
So we should wrap up and move on to Derek. But where should people go to find out about all of your projects?
Probably look on my GitHub or Twitter. Twitter is x_ability, and my GitHub is ir_Thomas.
Cool. Yeah, we'll drop those into the show notes as well. Cool. Well, thank you very much for the demos. It looks like we got through about 10% of the things that you could have demonstrated.
Yes, roughly.
So yeah, we'll have to sign you up for another lightning demo session in the future. But yeah, thank you very much. Okay.
You're welcome. Take care.
Going to pull Derek Willis up onto the stage. There we go. Derek, are you screen sharing?
Yes.
Great. Let's pull that up as well.
Okay. Let's see here. Hold on a second here. Okay.
There we go. Okay.
There you go. So thanks. My name is Derek Willis. I teach at the University of Maryland. I've known Simon for a while, and I'm a old school Dataset user. And I just want to kind of, this is going to be a little less impressive, I suspect, in some ways than Tommy's was, and Matias as well. So, but I wanted to talk a little bit about how we've used Datasette, the database, in a recent reporting project we did.
I want to interrupt you for a second. We're seeing screen sharing. We're just seeing the message that says you're sharing your screen, but nothing else. So I think you might have selected the "you are sharing your screen" window as the thing to be shared.
Yeah. Well, that's not what I want. That's what I want.
There we go. Got it. Yep, that's working. Great.
Sorry about that. All right. So, yeah. So I want to talk about a reporting project that our students did, and that does involve Datasette and involves working with LLMs, although part of what I'm eager to hear is essentially how we can make that better and easier using some of the Datasette ecosystem tools. So anyway, if a member of Congress or their staff goes on a trip, it's paid for by somebody who's not a government employee or by the government itself, they have to fill out these forms. Here's a form they have to fill out. It has some information about like where they went and when and who went and how much it cost. And then it has like, usually at the end or towards the end of this document, it'll have like itineraries and agendas, things like that. We get some metadata about this, but not a lot. And so we wanted to build like a database of this, which we ended up doing. We ended up building like a Datasette database of 17,000 House trips and like a few thousand more Senate trips. And this database has essentially like, it's a nice relational stuff. But one of the things we wanted to do was to augment this with information from the filings themselves, which were terrible PDFs, as you just saw. The House gives us a little more metadata than the Senate does. So the House table is actually better and has more information in it, such as like who the sponsor was and where they went. The Senate doesn't do that at all. They don't have who the sponsor was or where they went. So we needed actually to extract that and then put it into that database. And giving you an idea of what that's like, here's a Senate filing. And most of them are, some of them are electronic, but most of them are image PDFs, which are lovely and terrible at the same time, but mostly terrible, right? So we ran all those through AWS's Textract, dumped the text out. And in addition to creating a data set that has like basic metadata about each trip, like you see here, we also ended up creating like a table that has all the text from Textract. We ended up using this and using Datasette as then a API, as a backend, to then do some LLM stuff with where we would pass the text to a language model and then ask it to extract certain things. So to give you an example, from this Senate trip that was to the Software Association conference, we asked it to, for example, identify the places that they went and the reasons for going there. And to produce like JSON files. And I can talk a little bit about why we did that rather than just simply insert it into the database, but if you like. But basically, we would pipe that text from the Datasette API into an LLM and have it return JSON to us. And it does like a really good job. Almost every model we use, we mostly settled on using Claude. Did a really good job of these things. In addition to having like where they went, we had who they met with, and additional sort of like like traveler information that was only contextual in the sense of like, did they bring a spouse or a child with them on the trip? That's on the form, but not really in a way that you could. It's like a checkbox, and so it's kind of hard to see. But the LLMs mostly did a really good job of that. To the extent that that we ran into errors, we occasionally did, but they were mostly errors of omission rather than commission. In other words, it mostly didn't give us things that weren't in the actual travel record. It just missed a couple of things, which if you're in journalism, that's an error that you'd much rather live with than the inventing stuff, right? And so we did a bunch of stories on this, and then built, using Datasette as the back end, built a searchable database that folks could go in and see, essentially look at their member of Congress or at different sponsors and see, or different destinations, and navigate that database as well.
So that demo right there, is that custom Datasette templates, or is that like a custom?
No, this was like a this was like using the API, and this is like a Flask joint that is baked out. It's a flat HTML.
Oh,
so it'll scale. Yeah. You notice like there's an index.html here, but basically all these pages are all flat pages.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's really smart.
No hosting, right? Or rather, easy hosting. But like behind the scenes of this, like to build it originally, we're calling out the API from the original.
Right. It's Datasette as part of a build process, but it's static at the end, so you never have to think about it ever again.
Right. That's and so like really you get the full text of this, and then it's that's what's helping us along. Now, I will say, and I'll stop sharing here for a second. I will say that like what we don't do here is we're not like a soup to nuts LLM thing, the way that Tommy's showed that process. And the reason that we didn't do that this time was mostly that we had students working with us who were relatively new to programming or to Python. We teach mostly in R. And so what we wanted to make sure was that we had like a sort of verifiable steps every part of the process. Now, we could have probably built a pipeline to actually do that would have used LLM to do that, but semesters, timetables, constraints. So what we ended up doing was producing those JSON files that you saw so that we could do spot checking. We would do like take a random sample of them and like have students check them against the originals to make sure that they were accurate. And it was that part, like I said, we were really pleased with the output of this, especially given that we were shoving a decent amount of text from those filings into the large language models.
Did you experiment with any of the model? Did you try using the language models that accept images for the OCR at all, or did you go straight to Textract?
We went straight to Textract. We did use the image stuff for a separate project, one that involved like really horribly formatted PDFs with like attempted tabular data that wasn't really tabular, like multiple tables on a single page kind of stuff with different layouts, and that actually worked pretty well. Like the image, like that was easier than dumping the text out and asking a language model to reorganize it.
Right.
Giving it the picture of it was actually super effective. In fact, one of my students stumbled upon this by literally just taking a screenshot of it and then shoving it into a model, saying like, "Hey, figure this out." And
I've been doing a lot of experiments with that. So Google Gemini can actually take just PDFs. You can splat PDFs straight into it. But I've been doing most of my experiments where I take the PDF, turn each page into an image, and then do a separate prompt for each image, because it just feels like you get. If there's less chance of, like, if you give it 30 pages at a time, it feels much more likely to miss things if you give it one page, maybe because of the output length limits. But
Yeah.
I've been getting, and the results there are frustratingly close to being useful, but I don't trust it as much as Textract. You know, Textract isn't going to hallucinate. That's not a thing that Textract does.
Right, right. And that was the thing. Like that project involved like record books from high school sports here in Maryland, and these are just like terrible PDF, terribly formatted PDFs. And there we could afford to do it like page by page, whereas we get 17,000 travel records. I mean, you can do it for sure, but
well, that's the other thing is that Gemini, the really cheap Gemini models, like Gemini 1.5 Flash 8B, will cost you a couple of dollars to do 17,000 pages of documents. And it's the results, the quality's good, but I don't know if it would survive spot checking. Like I'd try it as an experiment, but I don't know if I'd trust it without really digging into seeing what it's doing. But God, they're getting so inexpensive now. There's the new AWS Nova models that just came out in December, which are priced the same as Gemini and can do the same kinds of things as Gemini. And I don't think people have really started digging into those ones yet either.
No, that's got to be that. I mean, as an academic institution, actually, it's much more easy. It's easier for us to like plug into the Amazon ecosystem because we already have like a vendor relationship there. I mean, literally we have access to Gemini now, but literally for the first year it was out, we were like, our university was like, nope, you can't use Gemini. Like literally was blocked. So, but AWS is a whole different story.
Right. And yeah, AWS Nova, if you've got AWS credentials, you have to go into their horrifying portal and click around until you find the activate button on Nova. But once you've clicked the activate button, your credentials just work and you can start running prompts through them. And yeah, they do audio and images. And I don't think they do video yet. I can't remember, but they're moving pretty quickly on that. And the prices are just absurdly low.
The last thing I want to say is we are planning on releasing the text data from this because that is like something that nobody else has done, and making that publicly available. In fact, the whole like data set should be publicly available pretty soon. But the text is what we're really interested in seeing what people do with.
Awesome. Yeah, that feels like there's so much opportunity there.
And my GitHub, in case you want to see what else we're up to, is is just dwillis, DWILLIS, and the same thing on Blue Sky.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Derek.
Thanks,
Alex, are you ready to jump on?
Yes, actually, we have a new person who wants to demo Nat. He sent in a request while this was going on, so I was like, I think we can fit in 5 minutes. If you're ready, Nat?
Yeah, let's pull Nat up.
Yo, you're on.
Hello, just I want that window.
Sorry, Simon?
Yep, go for it.
Select Windows. Oops, no. Oh, I see. I need to drop down. Sorry.
Yes. Are you screen sharing?
I am trying to screen share if Firefox is having a time. So that's okay. I can just talk about this. One of the things that I like to do with LLMs, I think I've seen this like on this call, is you have a little like shell script that's just like, I have a quick question, like, how do I diff 2 branches in Git? Because I can never remember the syntax for that. And so, I've been doing this for some months. And I just had a sinking realization in about November, or actually it was before that even, that I've probably asked Claude Sonnet how to diff 2 branches in Git 8 or 10 times, and that seems like an awful waste of resources. And you can debate whether how much power does it actually take, and is this the sort of thing you should care about? Should you be worrying about eating less beef instead? But I'm not a person who can influence those things, but I am a software developer, so I can write some software to add a cache for that instead. So I threw together a little. Right now it's a script. I would like it to be an LLM plugin that, whenever you run a question through it, calculates the embedding for your question and throws it in a collection. And then if you ask it again, it'll check the collection and say, did you ask this already? And you can play with kind of the sensitivity of, what constitutes a match, because, maybe you're asking a different question about Git and you actually do need the last, a new.
So this is fully interactive, right? You say difference between 2 branches and it goes, well, 3 weeks ago you asked this thing, is that the same thing? And you say,
it pulls up it's a really short question, so it'll just search it and it just splats out a table of the top 3 or 4 results. And if that works, great. And if not, you say, actually, that's not quite the thing. Submit it to Claude or
which embedding model are you using for that?
Right now, I'm just using. It just uses whatever your default LLM embedding model is. So I think I'm using.
Makes sense. Yeah.
guys. Embed dash default is, I think it's, oops. I think it's one of the OpenAI ones.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you could. I think the LLM GGUF plugin got embedding capabilities pretty recently,
There's
so you could do
also-
it locally. Now you're saving network trips, and it's faster as well. Which is
One
nice.
of those embedding models, there's one called Something Tiny, which is only about 90 megabytes and is good. Like I've mucked around with it. It seems decent. So that's super. I'd honestly, I'd never thought of using embedding models like that just for straight up deduplication. Like that's effectively what you're doing. It
Yeah,
completely
exactly.
makes sense that would work.
Yeah, anyways, it's up on GitHub. It's at github/natnight/question cache. If that sounds interesting to you, take a look. And if my children give me a chance, I will try to turn that into a proper plugin. That's all
Awesome.
from me.
Cool. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Alex, do you want to? Are you ready to jump in?
Yeah, I got some Datasette plugins I've been working on for Datasette Cloud. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and hopefully Firefox doesn't ruin my day. Oh, okay. I might have to restart Firefox, unfortunately. Let me see. How you doing, Simon?
I'm pretty good. Yeah. I need to. While you're demoing, I'll make absolutely sure that my demo is up and ready to go.
Cool.
Um,
I unfortunately do have to restart Firefox, but I'll be right back.
Gotcha. Yeah, I will slightly preview my demo today. I'm going to be showing the most recent version of the Datasette enrichments mechanism, which I've been giving quite a major upgrade to over the past few days. And here's Alex.
Hello,
we have
hello.
progress bars now. They're animated. It's very exciting. Okay.
Oh, were you in the middle of sharing, Simon?
No, not at all. No, go for it.
Cool.
If we can get your screen up here.
Yes. Let me see.
There we go. It's doing the same thing it did.
Same exact thing. Wow.
You are sharing your screen window.
All right, let's see. Share this window. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Oh my God, it happened again. Do you want to go, Simon? And then I will figure out my own issues.
I will do that. Okay, hang on a sec. Make sure that's working. Okay, present, share screen, operating system settings. Just do the whole thing at once. Okay, so as I mentioned, I've been working on the most recent version of the Datasette enrichments system. So it turns out enrichments are just over a year old now. This is the mechanism for Datasette that lets you run some kind of operation against every row or a filtered set of rows in a table. And so here I've got Datasette up and running. This is a copy of the database that backs the datasette.io website, which is one of my favorite example databases. You can go to /content and just grab a copy of that content.db, and you get something that's got enough data in that it's interesting and worth messing around with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for CSV. Here are 3 repositories that mention CSV in some way, and I'm going to enrich that data, and I'm going to say I want to do AI analysis with a language model. And I'm just going to go with the full name and the description of each one as the input. And I'm going to give it a system prompt of write a flashy marketing slogan. And I'm going to say, put that in marketing. So now, if I click that button, this is the new feature. We now have this progress bar that pops up showing its progress through that. And that seems to have worked. So now if I pop through here, there's a new column. There's a new column over there called marketing. And if I say, show me not blank rows, so now we have CSVs to SQLite is transform your data with ease, turn them into SQLite gold, transform your data in data drama into data harmony with CSV diff, and dreams into upload, convert, and conquer with Datasette. So that worked, right? That's and you'll notice that enrichment there, I ran against just the 3 that matched my search. you can run them against a much larger set of data. So, but the thing I really wanted to demonstrate is this new progress bar mechanism. And I've actually got each of these enrichments is a plugin. I have an enrichment I built called Slow, and all it does is simulate running an enrichment slowly. So I can tell it, take half a second for each of these 204 rows, hit the button, and now, there we go, it's going to tick along and do about 2 rows a second, just so I can see that progress bar running. Enrichments can have errors, and so I can also simulate those. I'm going to say, yeah, do that, and let's have an error rate of 0.3. So a third of these simulated enrichments. And there we go. These are now showing us little red blobs. So you can visually see we've had 45 tasks completed, 34 of them have errors. I can now go through to this new page here, and I can pause an enrichment, at which point it stops running. I can resume it, and you can see who resumed it and when. A very useful thing about the new system is that now if you quit and restart the server, enrichments survive those restarts. So I can actually, and this is particularly important for Datasette Cloud, where we sometimes reboot the server as part of an upgrade, and we don't want our users' enrichments being abandoned halfway through because of a reboot. So now that all handles the upgrade as well, the switch over as well. The whole enrichment system runs, unsurprisingly, off of additional SQLite databases. So we've got these enrichment jobs. This is the things that I've triggered against that database. And we've got enrichment errors. So you can actually, if you start from one of these jobs here, you can actually click through and see detailed logs of all of the errors that occurred, along with the primary keys of the rows that were affected. So the idea here is that we can blitz through a 2,000 row enrichment, and if there are 5 errors, you can at least see what went wrong in this table. And in the future, I'd like it if you could say, okay, rerun that enrichment against the keys that had errors. That's not something that I've figured out how to get working yet. And the other thing that's new is you can now, for a table, you can see those enrichment jobs. So here are the 13 enrichments that I've run against that example table. I can get that for the database as well. So here are 28 enrichments that I've run against the things in that data.db table. So yeah, so the new feature is the progress bars, which I'm very happy with. Prior to that, enrichments were running and they were completely invisible. You just have to sort of cross your fingers and hope that it was working. Having these pages for each of those jobs also means that you can do things like see the configuration settings of that enrichment and when it finished, and if there are errors, you can click through and look at those. This one was cancelled, so the progress bar is cut off here. But there's one other new feature which I don't have a demo. Actually, no, I do have a demo of that. It's possible for an enrichment now to cancel itself. So if, for example, I'm running against this one, I'll do a simulation of this. I'll say, do that, and there's always going to be a 1 in 10, a 1 in 20 chance that the enrichment will get cancelled. And so there we go. It's churning away. It's made it to 28 tasks, and it cancelled itself. So you can see that this was cancelled by the enrichment itself. The idea here is that if you've got an enrichment that can tell when something has gone catastrophically wrong, like maybe it's one that runs a snippet of JavaScript and that JavaScript failed with the syntax error, it can cancel itself by raising an exception. You can also have enrichments that pause themselves. So if you have like an API-based enrichment that hits a rate limit or an out of tokens error for a language model, it can pause the enrichment with a message that tells you to go and, I don't know, buy more credits or whatever, and you can then resume that enrichment once you've fixed that. If you're interested in writing enrichments, the enrichments.datasette.io site here, which I'll link to from the show notes, has full documentation about how to develop them. They're relatively straightforward to build. You have to register an enrichment with a plugin hook, and you implement a method called enrich batch, which gets passed a list of rows that you need to do some kind of manipulation on. And there's a bunch of different examples of enrichments that already exist. So hopefully anything that you want to build in this way, there'll be an example that you can use as a starting point. You know what, I'm going to demonstrate one more enrichment here. I'm going to show the JavaScript enrichment. So here I can say, I want to enrich all of these items in this news thing here. If I do JavaScript, I can actually write a JavaScript function that will do something with that row of data. In this case, I'll just run the default one. And what this is doing is it's pulling in the JSON for each row and just turning that into a JSON blob in a JavaScript output column. This is a really, really quick way of doing all sorts of sort of more complicated, like anything involving string manipulation or trying to do something programmatic to extract data into additional columns can be done like this. The next feature I want to build for that one is I'd like it to be prompt driven. So you have the option in here to say, write me a function that that fixes the date formats or whatever, and then call out to a language model that will write this little piece of code right here. This is running using Quick.js on the server, which appears to have a robust sandbox around it. So I don't think there are ways that you can use this to break your Datasette instance. On the off chance that there are, I'm recommending that this is something you restrict to authenticated like trusted users. But yeah, so that's the latest in Datasette enrichments. Very keen to talk to people who are interested in using this feature and want to start building, want to experiment with building additional enrichments for it. I think it's a really exciting sort of growing aspect of the overall ecosystem. And how do I stop sharing? There we go. Yeah. So Alex, you've got screen sharing. Fantastic.
Yes, using OBS now to save myself. So real quick, I will drop you from the screen, Simon, so that way my screen's a little bit bigger. But just want to do a quick demo of a few Datasette plugins that we are working on for Datasette Cloud, but they're also open source if you want to use them in your own projects. This first one that we have, this project, this is the Datasette Write UI plugin, and it to begin with, it allows you to edit data inside your Datasette instances or inside of SQLite databases using Datasette. So for example, if you have a table like students, and it will add a new insert new row button at the very bottom here, where it will create a form for you where you can create a new student or add new rows into your database with number inputs and whatever else is appropriate for your given table. That already exists. This has existed for a little time. One new addition that we made recently is to make editing a little bit faster. Well, to edit and delete tables in the past, there's always this row icon that's available on the left-hand side. I'll make this a little bit bigger. There's this row icon you can click, and you can edit or delete a row directly from there. But a new option that we have for power users is if you hold down Shift and click on a row, then it will open up a modal for that specific row, just saving you a couple extra clicks. Might be very useful if you're using Datasette for as a CMS or some other backend for some applications. So that makes your life a little bit easier with Datasette Write UI. Another plugin that I want to show off is Datasette Pins that we've had for a little while. Let me go ahead and start that one up. Datasette Pins, what it allows you to do is you are able to pin databases or tables to a dataset to the Datasette homepage, right? So normally a Datasette homepage, it just lists the databases that you have that are available in your Datasette instance, as well as a few tables. But if you want to pin a certain table, so for example, this is a SQLite database of congressional legislators that actually Derek works on. This is a open data project that we have that's available, that we have a SQLite database version of. But let's say, for example, you want to pin this specific table called offices. With this plugin, you have a new table action called pin. And once it's pinned and you go to the homepage, there's a nice UI right here. So now you can quickly access that specific table from the homepage. You can do the same with databases itself. So if you want to pin a database as well as a table, that's available as well. You can reorder these pins if you have multiple pins. So just more options to make the homepage a little bit more richer. That's a plugin that we have for a little while. We're going to make a few updates. So for example, having custom descriptions and maybe pinning other items that are available, that will be coming very soon in the next week or so. And lastly, just because showing off some plugins that you may not know about, one last plugin that we have, actually I'll pull up Datasette Cloud for this. There is a Datasette comments plugin. So for example, if you have a dataset if you're working on a dataset with a team where you want to, you're exploring a dataset, you want to mention a coworker on a specific row, or in general make comments on a table without actually editing it or without actually adding, a new comment column or something. There is Datasette comments. It's a Datasette plugin where it will allow you to write a new comment within the table UI. So if you wanted to leave a comment right here and mention a coworker, or add a hashtag or something, you can do that directly from the Datasette UI, and then it's available. So whenever you're on the table itself, and if a row has a comment right here, then you can click on that icon and you'll see the comments that someone has left. You can have hashtags. You can mention coworkers. Still a little bit buggy, but we're working through it. You can react on a specific comment if you have multiple coworkers on one thing. It's just another way to make collaborative data editing and data commenting and exploration a little bit nicer. We're planning to make a few UI updates and bug fixes to this plugin soon. So if you want to check that out, it is called Datasette-comments, and we'll leave links to this in the YouTube chat as well as in the show notes that Simon will put together after this. So yeah, a lot of cool plugins that we're working on. If you have any ideas of cool little collaborative little UI elements or features that you want in Datasette, definitely let us know. Happy to make something work.
Cool. Well, thank you, Alex. So I think we get to wrap this up on the hour, which feels like a very nice nice length for this. Thank you, everyone who presented. This has been I like this format. I think the lightning talks, lightning demos thing feels like it's a keeper. And yeah, we will have notes out pretty soon with links to all of the different projects. I'll do a little bit of a write-up of them as well. The video should be available on YouTube straight away as well. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. And we're likely to do these probably twice a month. We were thinking would be a good cadence for this kind of thing. But yeah, so if anyone watching has things they'd like to demo, please let us know. We're going to be queuing up presenters and making sure that we've got a good lineup of presentations for the future. And yeah, and thanks very much to Alex for organizing all of this behind the scenes as well. Cool. Okay.
For sure. Thank you all.
Yep. Stream over. See you all on the internet.